Is he dead, host? 618 questioned as it cast a quick glance at the man on the ground. A crimson haze obscured its eyesight, and it realized the scarlet was blood. 618 was astonished by the red pool that was gradually growing around the man on the floor. The man didn't make a sound, so 618 believed he was dead. There was no movement from the guy, no indication that he was still alive. It felt that its host was too cruel. It was originally concerned about the host being bullied, but now the host has just killed someone. What if its host is apprehended in this law-abiding society? Is he going to be locked up again? 618 was becoming anxious just thinking about it. Xiao Qingrong kneeled and withdrew his scalpel from the space with his left hand. With a white handkerchief, he wiped the blood off the blade. He got it at the System Mall. It's really convenient. No, he's still alive, but he'll be in excruciating pain. Look at his pupils of awe and dread. They'd form a lovely collection if they were excavated. Unfortunately, I loathe such people, otherwise, he would be deceased and in my collection by now. Xiao Qingrong's evaluation of the fallen Tang Yihai stunned the 618. So, he's still alive, which is a good thing. Host, I thought you murdered him. Because 618 was connected to a host for the first time after its formation, much of what it learned came via the internet, and it comprehended that human civilization had a legal structure and that it was not possible to simply kill people on the spot. It is illegal to kill people. Despite the fact that the presenter was ready to be harassed, 618 people believed the host's response was incorrect. It was comforting to learn that the host had not murdered the man. When he heard 618's timid voice, Xiao Qingrong smiled. He already understood that 618 had a novel approach and thought it was a little ridiculous, so he directed his scalpel at the man on the ground. Of course, I do not murder anyone. Murder is a heinous act. 618, in our world, the law represents balance and order, ensuring that peace is preserved and wrongdoers are held accountable for their actions. It affects others who are merely trying to protect themselves. Killing people is pointless. He said this as he dangled the scalpel over the man's eye. Don't ask me if I'm going to murder anyone. Killing these individuals will merely stain my scalpel. He, on the other hand, does not deserve to be killed by me. He will receive the consequences of his deeds. Despite having blood on his face, he stood up after speaking. He exited the room without planning to clean it. No one was typically present save for the guards at the door until the instructor arrived to deliver the meal. There were further rooms where the youngsters were kept. 618 recognized Tang Yihai's demeanor and quickly searched his name, but the findings made him unacceptable. Tang Yihai, 28, had served in the army for 5 years before being discharged for deserting. When he was presented to Mengyu College, he was just 20 years old. During his 8 years at this institution, he arrested tens of thousands of kids. Can average children hold out? The conclusion was very evident. After witnessing the atrocities that occurred, even the 618 felt harsh, let alone other people. Tang Yihai should not be forgiven. Did you look into him previously, host? How else would he have found out about these people? Sighing at his foolish system, Xiao Qingrong gave up hope and moved forward to a restricted cell. Of course, do you suppose it was to entertain you with all the hacking tactics I practiced in the learning space? Xiao Qingrong could effortlessly connect to the world's network whenever he exercised in the learning space because of 618's unique existence. Taking advantage of this chance, Xiao Qingrong infiltrated the national profile system and discovered these facts. Everything was known, even about things as basic as murder, since 618 as a system was above the will of the world. For Xiao Qingrong, who was in the system learning SPACE, the 7-day incarceration had lasted more than 80 years. Xiao Qingrong's hacking talents had long been unrivaled thanks to 618's assistance, so examining one individual was a trivial task. Don't mistake Mengyu College for a regular school. The institution installed cameras across the campus to prevent pupils from fleeing. Xiao Qingrong quickly discovered these cameras, and each one held photographs of children's blood. As for exposing Mengyu College to 618's abilities, he never even considered it. There was only one of many such colleges. Even if the school was discovered and shut down, there was always a second or even a third. But if the youngsters were not docile, their parents would send them to another similar college for education exposed and prohibited. If such youngsters were disobedient, their parents would send them to another educational college. Xiao Qingrong was aware that his body had such parents, but he had no intention of returning. Because 618 put him here, it indicates that the actual Xiao Qingrong perished here. Thus, he would not care about the parents of this corpse because they had no idea they were essentially murdering their children. Xiao Qingrong exited the room. He examined the iron gate in front of him. Because the youngsters lacked the capacity to resist, the inside of the chamber was basic. There was only one doorknob, a little door handle that sealed these children's lives inside. Xiao Qingrong, on the other hand, had no intention of saving anyone and proceeded to go outdoors. It was a lengthy corridor with cramped rooms on both sides. You can estimate the number of students the school could accept each year. The scalpel in my left hand magically transformed into a flower. It was nearly impossible to see what was in his deft fingers, and the gatekeeper beyond the enclosure heard footsteps behind him. He mistook another student for a teacher, but he didn't care because he was still smoking his cigarette. He'd been a gatekeeper here for over a decade. People outside looked down on him, but he felt delighted after coming here. Parents who were stupid enough to send their children here did so. Numerous youngsters were sent here throughout time. Parents claim that it was beneficial to their child, but in reality, they have done the same thing as the folks here, nothing. He was a retired bachelor. He'd never be able to marry, let alone have a kid, in this life. It was more of a refusal. Those horrible parents were prepared to bring their children here. If it were up to him, how could they be placed in such a school? These events, however, had nothing to do with him. He was only a bystander. Xiao Qingrong moved quickly. He walked silently behind the gatekeeper and stood there. The gatekeeper didn't know why, but he suddenly felt chilly behind him and turned around, moaning. "Did you bring anyone out, Mr. Tang?" I asked. But as he turned around, he saw Xiao Qingrong with blood streaks on his face. He was stunned and about to respond. Unfortunately, Xiao Qingrong outpaced him. Since taking the Qiaoshou pill, Xiao Qingrong's hands have been extremely agile. His left hand had already scraped the goalie's throat, and his right hand had smacked the goalie on the head. Warm blood sprayed over Xiao Qingrong's face, but he remained expressionless, causing 618 to quiver once more. When 618 saw that this middle-aged guy had collapsed, he couldn't help but urge his host. "Isn't this person dead, host? Please, no more murdering." 618 would be relieved if he had simply shocked them. However, it got frightened when it realized that its host had slain these individuals and that there were bodies strewn about. Xiao Qingrong pulled out a cloth and wiped his scalpel gently. The corner of his lips twitched. Obviously not. "First, I'm just exercising my hands." Tang Yihai's parents were both killed, and he had no friends. However, this person is unique, and death is an overly simplistic punishment. How can I endure allowing these folks to feel the allure of death? Kill everyone? That is simply the stupidest method. He wished for these people to taste and feel remodeled. He feels that the pupils here are eagerly anticipating it. /S alright. So, what are your plans for the future? 618 reasoned that the previous world must have been too cushy, and thus this world had to go through these abrupt changes. It felt cheated when it considered the circumstances. Xiao Qingrong didn't say anything and kept walking forward. He had checked the structure of the building using the cameras. The nearest restraint room was next to the craft room. This was a haven for good youngsters. Mengyu College has several locations. The youngsters sent by their parents to Morph were not here to learn anything, but to work. After being detained and subjected to physical punishment, the youngsters were transferred to the craft room. In general, beating is an easy activity, and a set number of finished goods must be given every day, otherwise, you will be fined and denied meals. You couldn't say anything in this location, and if you did, you'd be beaten. As a result, Mengyu College was extremely lucrative. It abuses kid labor as well as garners money from stupid parents. Xiao Qingrong arrived in the craft room after evading the camera. There was no one outside the craft room since the teachers were inside, monitoring the children, not allowing them to converse, and supervising the work. It was hidden at the craft room's door. It was very silent, like an empty room. This chamber held over 60 young people. Everyone was dressed similarly, bending their heads, and speaking quietly. It was incredibly dismal as Beaded, a teacher, and an instructor sat there playing games on their phones. Unfortunately, this mood was shattered the very next second. Xiao Qingrong pounced on the open door. The loud noise drew everyone's attention to the door. The instructor and teacher instantly rose from their seats and turned to face the door. Xiao Qingrong lifted his lips and smiled at everyone, but he didn't realize how terrible he appeared with blood on his face at the time, like an evil ghost crawling out of hell.